My observation is I think they went from, and I'd like to know what you think, to he won't win, but it was always a comma. We're going to hit him with all these indictments. We're going to say 96 counts. He won't win because the voters will be thinking he's a criminal, and that'll do it. It didn't, and he went up in the polls, and he even went to a point in North Carolina and Georgia, as you know, that all of the polls, including their polls, he's like 8-9 points up now. Say what you will about Fulton County, the rest of Georgia is bright red and upset.
Right.
Then, we'll convict him in New York. He'll be a convicted felon. He's a convicted felon, comma, he won't win. And the next day we saw everyone in the media, they were using convicted felon in the same way, right on script. Do you think, from your perspective, that we've crossed from, if we do this, he can't win, to we can't allow it? And therefore, the kitchen sink is on the table, including, a manipulated homicide.
Well, I mean, they're sending a signal out there that they want to put the president's life at risk, President Trump's life at risk. In 2020, they contemplated Trump winning and what they would do if he won. And the war game included John Podesta, and John Podesta pretending to be Joe Biden in a war game where there was a dispute about the Electoral College, a close count where Trump was winning. They would have the left-leaning states demand that the electors be seated they supported in order to change the outcome of the election, and the threat would be we're going to withdraw from the union if they don't do what we say. So they were actually contemplating civil war in 2020.
Option.
Yeah, so that's what they were planning to do in 2020. So, of course, who gets prosecuted? People who actually disputed the election under law, rather than those who were evidently conspiring ways to engage in civil war against the republic. Then now we hear Democrats talking about, even if Trump does win, we're going to object to his electoral counts in Congress, not because the election was compromised, not because there was any evidence of fraud or administrative deficiencies that require a do-over, but because we don't think Trump is eligible for other reasons. So just a pure power play to overturn the outcome of the election. So they're never going to stop. I mean, they've impeached him twice. They're trying to jail him. They want him dead. And they're telling us what they're planning to do. They're talking about figuring out what to do in January if Trump wins. And you can bet there'll be more efforts to impeach him. They'll probably target his family more directly. They're never going to stop. They're never going to stop. And it's up to, if you like the Republic, whether you're liberal or conservative, I think you should be very upset about what's happening here. And I think this is where they're making a political mistake, because you understand why some of the bad guys do what they do, because they see a political benefit. But when Biden's out there advocating for, quote, democracy all the time, I think a lot of the blowback in favor of Trump is a concern about democracy or the constitutional republic. And they don't see a vote for Biden as advancing democracy. They see a vote for Trump as ensuring that sort of crazy politicization of justice stops. And so the pro-democracy vote, in my view, Trump is in a position to benefit from.
Trump is in a position to benefit from. Okay.
If you want to protect democracy, you remove from power those who are using the Justice Department to jail their political opponents, purely because they're political opponents, not for any other substantive reason.
And that's what the partner at Sequoia said in a very long Twitter, McGuire, who summed it up by saying, and that's why I think it's very important to protect this election, protect this, and that's why I'm giving $300,000 to the Trump campaign.
I mean, it explains why Biden publicly, at least, is a little bit nervous about talking about the conviction, because I think people have been. It's destabilized the country, and an incumbent president doesn't benefit from a country that's destabilized when he's running for re-election.
Let's stay on this before we go to the next point. Okay, so for me, you know how we learned in 2020 that, whoever has control over the Supreme Court, that's the ultimate power. Okay, we learned that in a big way. The Supreme Court's more important than president. We learned that. I mean, at least I did Where for me, it's like, oh, you flipped 3 seats? Damn, what if it would have gone Hillary Clinton and she would have flipped those 3 seats? Imagine the next 20, 30, 40 years what it would have looked like. Because these guys, this is not a 5-year job or a 10-year job. They're there for a while, right? Now when we're seeing this case study with New York and what New York is doing to Trump, what are we learning? Are we learning who has more judges, has power? Are we learning, what are we learning? Are we learning who has more judges or who is willing to be more corrupt? Because I just pulled this up, Rob. Can you go all the way to the top? If you go all the way to the top, so this shows us we have a total of, zoom in a little bit, the United States Federal Court has a total of 1,770 judgeships authorized across 209 courts in the federal court system, okay? 1,770, 209. Go lower to break it down by states. This will tell you by states, but go all the way down to the one that you just had a minute ago. So then this shows us on this page, 178 are judges, 84 are Democratic appointed, 92 are Republican appointed, 2 vacancies, and then 4 pending nominations. Then go lower, because this is circuit court judges, right? Go up. These are circuit court, the one you just had, Rob. Go all the way up. No, where you were at before. At the top, it says current U.S. Circuit Court judges, top left, right there. Yeah. So then if we go a little lower, then we'll see numbers. Go lower, Rob, to the next one with numbers. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Here is now total judges, 678 by state. Democratically appointed, 363. Republican appointed, 272. Vacant, 44. Pending nominations, 26. Are we learning that the number of judges also appointed, prevents it? Because I just don't want to see this happen again in the future where somebody uses their power to bully the other side and Republicans are almost feeling helpless. It's like, we can't do nothing right now. So Republicans, there's a part of them that's like, man, I'm glad he's going through this because I want him to be gone. What role does this play to prevent this again happening in the future? Or, no, this really doesn't matter. If they want to do it again in the future, they can do it again.
Well, they see judges as an impediment to what they want to do. That's why, as I said earlier, they're attacking the Supreme Court. So unless their folks are in control of it, they see the judiciary as an impediment. So they at least believe that the person appointing the judges matters in terms of their politics. And typically, the Trump judges have tended to be a bit more fair and understanding of the president's concerns. It hasn't been perfect. I mean, many of the judges up in D.C. are Republican appointed, and they've been treating the January 6th defendants miserably. And they fully have embraced the left-wing narrative about January 6th. So the fact that they're Republican isn't a perfect measure of how they'll follow in terms of the rule, what they'll do in terms of the rule of law, but it's a reasonable indicator. Judge Bork had a great book, the late Judge Bork, who failed to become a Supreme Court justice. And I think the title was The Tempting of America. And he said that, the problem with the judicial power, you don't want judges who get up there of either side who see their power and they are tempted politically to get to the right result. And that's the danger we face from the judiciary. We don't want judges of either side who, because of the politics, they let that guide their decision as opposed to trying to apply the law in a dispassionate way. Now, is there a perfect way of getting that, of ensuring that's always the case? No. But in the case of Judge Merchan, who gave a donation to Joe Biden and other Democrat anti-Trump organizations, I mean, that's kind of like an easy call. He should be nowhere near that case. In the least, he broke the rules and suggested in a way that showed partisan anti-Trump bias. So it wasn't like a contribution he was able to make under law, and that's just the reality. You just deal with that. No, he broke the rules to make that contribution, and in addition to all of his other displays of bias. So, there is a process for holding people like Judge Merchan accountable, but he's not fearful of that process, obviously. And I think the only way, or I shouldn't say the only way, but unless there are consequences for what we've seen go on. Comey suffered no consequences. None of these folks face any consequences. Adam Schiff, one of the worst congressmen, disreputable, dishonest, abused his authority in ways that we don't even fully understand in terms of going into phone records of innocent Americans just in a secret way, just crazy stuff. He's likely to be the senator from California. So there have been no consequences. He was never really sanctioned by the Republican majority. And I appreciate Republicans are, they're not going to subpoena Bragg. Well, Trump's already been convicted. Day late and a dollar short. I was yelling at them, why are you funding this process? And they didn't want to fight in terms of these government shutdown fights.
Why not?
Because because the leadership didn't want to engage in the fight because they were fearful of losing.
Which leadership? Is it McCarthy?
Well, McCarthy and Speaker Johnson.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.